Hello, welcome to another speed paint process video. This time I'm going to talk because it's easier than typing out everything I want to say. So today's subject matter is Marcille and Falin from Dungeon Meshi. I just finished the manga and it was so cool. The art is so amazing. If you have watched the anime and you're interested in what happens next, because season 2 is not out yet, I think you should go read the manga because the art is super good. So the vibe, I wanted it to kind of be like inspired by like classical paintings. So I'm starting off here with Marcille in the foreground. I wanted her pose to be like very feminine, very soft. She's kind of like levitating. Only not for any particular reason, I just thought it would look cool. And this outfit is kind of more relevant to later in the manga. And her expression, I kind of wanted it to be like vacant, kind of like tired looking and kind of lost looking. So here I'm starting with Falin in the background. For her, I had a very kind of specific look that I wanted to go with. I think the whole reason I even wanted to paint this in the first place was because once I saw Chimera Falin like all over Twitter, I was like, I have to draw this. Oh my gosh, a monster girl, I have to draw her. So I kind of went for like this like half pretty, feminine, soft pose at the top. Like this painting here was my inspiration for her pose. You know, it's like very tragic, very pretty. That was my sort of like inspiration for her human half. And for the dragon half, or the, you know, monster half, I kind of wanted it to look like really awkward and kind of scary and gross, like, you know, those like medieval paintings of like dragons and like coat of arms with dragons on them, and the dragons look kind of surreal and the poses are a little bit unusual and kind of awkward. That was sort of the feel I wanted to go with Falin's look, like have her be feminine and human on the top and this kind of like gnarly dragon thing on the bottom half. Now here I'm adding in this ribbon banner with their characters' names on them. This ribbon banner and the eventual color scheme for the background and the clouds were inspired by this painting here. I really like how the ribbon is shaped, how it's not smooth or flowy. It's kind of like crooked on the outside. So now I'm moving into blocking out the grey tones before I start shading. I shade these kinds of paintings in grayscale before I add the color. So right here I'm selecting segments of the drawing using the pen tool and the magic wand tool. The pen tool just lets me be precise. You can use the lasso tool. I said magic wand, I meant lasso tool. You can use the lasso tool, but for me, oh my god, someone's ringing me, hold on. Sorry. And I said lasso, like yeehaw, lasso, cowboy, you know? The pen tool is better for me because I get shaky hands. So when I'm using the lasso tool, I sometimes end up with wobbly selections. So after you've selected it, I just sort of change the tone to match how dark or how light the segment is. Here I'm just kind of making the lettering a little more tidy. I will fix this later on when I get to the color stage. Okay, now we're moving on to the most time-consuming part of this painting, which is shading it in grayscale. So on a new layer, I set the layer mode to overlay. I use a white colored chalk brush, and you can see I'm just going through and doing all of the highlights. I have another layer underneath that set to multiply, and then with a dark gray chalk brush, I'm doing all of the shadows. So because I split up the painting into different tone bits, I'll use the magic wand tool to select different segments and then shade and lighten those. So the skin is able to be selected separately, the feather part and the leg part. So just makes things easier. You can obviously shade and then erase it if you go like outside of the lines or whatever, but it's just easier for me to select portions of the painting individually. You can also see the way that I've organized my layers. The overlay light layer, the multiply shadow layer, and the base layer are all separate layers. So I can, easily edit things. You could do it all on one layer if you really wanted to, but, I take advantage of the layering system here. It just makes things easier to edit later on. And also my sketch layer is separated into different segments. So the body, the hair, the dragon portion of Falin, the halo, they're all separate layers. So sometimes I'll jump into the hair sketch layer and just tidy it up a bit as I'm doing the shading, because as I start shading, I notice parts of the sketch that are no longer needed. I don't do a clean line art layer for this painting method. I just thicken the lines or erase away the lines depending on how much depth I want to have or how light the area should be. I also found shading Falin's feathery part of the body really difficult. I tried to make her look soft and feathery, kind of like a chicken sort of texture, but I'd never done something like that before, so it was a little bit tricky, but I hope it looks nice and soft and fluffy. Like, that was my idea. And here I'm going in and doing the highlights for the dragon scales. I wanted it to look a bit more painterly, so I'm not going in and doing individual scales. I just wanted to give the illusion of scales, if that makes sense. So I just do these little lines of highlight on the scaly bits. Okay, so here I'm just blocking in some shading for the cloudish background. So just like that, my painting and my Lamb of God painting inspiration, I wanted to do the same kind of, she's in the sky, or she's in some fantasy world. I don't know. The story is centered around Falin, pretty much this tragic figure and center point of the story, so it's sort of what I wanted this painting to convey. So now, same story with Marcille, new layer for highlighting, a new layer for shading, separate from the base color layer. I'm just going in and doing all of the highlights and all of the shading. I tried to focus a little bit more closely on her outfit. The outfit is pretty unique. It's got like a furry element, which was so hard to find reference for. Oh my gosh. But I did end up finding a little there was like a little standee that came out of Marcille in this outfit, and it was perfect. And I, you know, from looking at that standee, like I noticed this dress has like a big fluffy tail. So I would never have included the tail had I not seen that picture of the standee. So yeah, it pays to look for reference so you can get the details such as those correct. Just another little explanation about how I paint. You'll notice my opacity jumps around as I'm shading. I kind of keep my color of my color of my brush the same, but then I just change the opacity to determine how dark I want it to be. Even though I have pen pressure on, I prefer to just change the opacity. You just hit number, this is for Photoshop, you just hit the number on the keyboard, hit a 2, it'll change to 20%, hit 7, it'll change to 70%, and I just like fluctuate the opacity as I'm painting depending on how dark I want my, my brush to be. And so here I'm doing the dress, just trying to get the darks, get the contrast in the way that I like it. Going in with the hair as well, just getting some of those portions really dark and contrasted compared to the rest. Okay, now it is coloring time. So for when I do a grayscale painting and then color afterwards, I like to use gradient maps. So it's a very easy way to add color to a grayscale painting. Basically, you select the section that you want to color, make sure all of the layers that that are part of it are merged together, and then you hit gradient map. So what a gradient map does is takes the darkest part of the section and the lightest part of the section and applies the colors that you apply to it. So if you had pink at one end and green at the other end, then the darkest parts of the painting would be pink and the lightest parts would be green. That's basically how it works. So what I'm going through here is just selecting different parts of the painting, and I apply the gradient map. In other parts, I just change the hue and saturation if a gradient map was not needed. Here I am just tightening up the sketch layer. Here, the sketch layer has also been colored just slightly using the hue and saturation tool. Here I'm fixing her hair. Her hair was, even though I'm drawing this on my own style, I kind of felt her hairstyle was a bit too Velma-like and not Falin-like enough, so I just fixed her bob. I also fixed her neck feathers because the feathers go up higher than how I had originally painted them. I also added a bit more feathery-ish texture on her feather part of her body. These are bits that to me just are easier to add during the color stages. So I also fixed how her feathers are supposed to end above her belly button before I had her belly button having human skin. So here, a way that I always add depth after doing my gradient maps is on a multiply blend mode layer. I will go ahead and add some depth. So, you know, I'll add a goldish tone to the hair, I'll add some blush to the cheeks, just to add that depth. Here I am going through the gradient map process again with Marcille. Obviously she doesn't have as many parts to to map, so it's a bit of a quicker process, but it still looks better to do a gradient map than it does to just select the area and go hue and saturation and colorize. If you pop a blue in there, you pop some orange in there or something in your gradient map, it can look pretty cool. So at this point, I'm just adding refinements on the sketch layer here with the leaves, and now I'm going into that multiply layer again and adding in some cheek details and some skin depth. I do it on the chest and the hands and the cheeks and the legs as well, just to give her some color so she doesn't look completely pale. And look at this. This message was the bane of my existence when doing this painting. I use a Surface Pro and it doesn't have a lot of storage space on it, and I like to use the Surface Pro because I can take it everywhere with me. But unfortunately, you know, these file sizes get huge, my computer's full of random stuff, and so we suffer through the scratch disk is full error message. I have to purge all my history, close everything down, find stuff that I can delete. It's all full. So here I'm just sort of refining and going in with my multiply layer on and on and on. At this point, I'm pretty much done, but it's just sort of at a, you know, you decide when you're done type point. I wanted the painting to look painterly. I didn't want like an airbrushed, perfect, polished look. I did want it to kind of look kind of rough, and like you could tell where I had left brush strokes, etc. Like I kind of like that look with these kinds of paintings. And yeah, that's the finished look. I hope you like the process and learning about how I do paintings. Yoko Kui is a great manga artist. You should definitely read Dungeon Meshi if you haven't already. And yes, thank you so much for watching. Check out my website for my store and my exclusive merch and prints, and sign up for my free newsletter for the latest deals and latest drops. See you next time.